let's get into it. Let's talk about Brock Purdy. Let's move on to it. Brock Purdy got paid 5 year, $265 million, 181 million in total guarantees, including 165.05 million in the first 3 years of a deal that runs through 2030. Look, I have no problem with Brock Purdy getting his money. As I've always said, you get paid according to the market. With Brock Purdy, though, it's going to be tough for the San Francisco 49ers because now that you paid him, I mean, you look at that division. I mean, you lost Debo. He's now with Washington. You look at the Seattle Seahawks. You also look at the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Arizona Cardinals definitely did some good things in the offseason. And then, of course, with the Rams. So, BRF, what were your thoughts about Purdy's deal? And can San Francisco compete with Purdy?
When I, um, when I saw the post and I saw that San Francisco had ultimately gave him the contract, I looked at it. I looked at it from both sides because last year was really like the first time where like Brock Purdy didn't have like a full assessment of guns, and he played okay, but he didn't look nothing compared to when they went to the Super Bowl. I mean, he put up his number. I mean, I feel like, and this is goes back to why I feel like they don't draft Cam Ward. I think Brock Purdy's a better fit in the Kyle Shanahan scheme than Cam Ward. I feel like Kyle Shanahan's offense is a variation of like what what his dad Mike Shanahan did. It's like a West Coast offense light because it focuses really on running the ball, but it's a timing passing offense. So it's almost like a West Coast light kind of in a way. And I feel like Brock Purdy, he's shown to be accurate enough to really run that offense really, really well. So I think he's a better fit for it than Cam. Because I feel like Cam, although he can run, I think his athleticism is slightly overrated. I mean, he's got an arm, but I think his athleticism is slightly overrated. I don't think he's really the athlete that some people are trying to make him out to be. I don't think he's that type of guy. So with a guy like Brock, he
And
just
Purdy's
kind of
a hell of an
he,
improviser.
he, he does everything right. He just he does everything as far as like what Kyle Shanahan asked him to do as far as operating that offense, as far as like just spreading the ball out, finding the open guy. I mean, like Champ knows, us being Falcons fans, he knows we know what the Kyle Shanahan offense is capable of when it's running on all cylinders. If you don't believe me, 2016. Enough said. When that offense is on all cylinders, I think it's the scariest thing in the National Football League when that offense is running on all cylinders. And I think giving them that type of money, is it going to be hard to improve other facets of your football team? Yeah, definitely. Because you're looking at I think even
They
though they
can
did
also
lose
try to
Debo,
reconstruct his contract. They could try to reconstruct
they
his
could.
contract because we've seen that before with Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, and then now with Dallas with Dak Prescott.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. They could definitely like a year or two down the road, like look to restructure that deal. And honestly, I'm looking at how the 49ers are constructed. I like their receiver core. I like Brandon Ayuk being there. I like Ricky Pearsall being there. I like Jawan Jennings being there. I feel like they have three true wide receivers as opposed to somebody like a Debo, even though Debo is a really good player and he's going to do. I feel like I've seen like reports. The dude is motivated. So to everybody that has to face the Washington Commanders this year with Debo Samuel on that team, I pray for you because if he's motivated, they're that much scarier. But I just I feel like San Francisco, I think from a standpoint of not knowing what to expect with future quarterback classes down the road or potential free agents down the road, I kind of actually feel like they did the right thing here, giving Brock that money. not from the standpoint of like, do I feel he's a quarterback worthy of that type of money? Sometimes you just have to look at it like, if we don't keep him now, what if he goes someplace else and plays well and we had him and then we have to go out and draft someone and they don't live up at all into whatever expectations they're coming into the league with if we draft somebody. So I feel like it's one of those where it's like, if you already got a guy, you have to pay according to market. You keep them in the fold. Sometimes you just have to do that. I mean, the
Do you
champ
think a
spoke
lot of
about it
that had to
before.
do with Trey Lance, BRF?
Oh God, yes, absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
remember,
Because they
they not only
they
drafted
drafted
him, they
him to be
traded
that
up in
guy.
the draft to take him, and they could have
They
drafted Mac Jones with the third overall pick. Not saying that Mac Jones would have been
exactly,
lights out.
exactly, and remember this, and Champ will tell you this. Atlanta was going to draft him. Reports are Atlanta was going to draft him. San Francisco traded up to get in front of Atlanta to draft Trey Lance. That's why Atlanta ultimately went Kyle Pitts, because Atlanta was going to take him. Atlanta take Trey Lance to replace Matt Ryan, but they ultimately went with Kyle Pitts because, hey, okay, our guy's gone. Let's give Matt Ryan another target. Let's see what we can do. And then ultimately the Julio Jones trade happened, and that's another conversation. We'll go. But yeah, I think a lot of it is definitely the Trey Lance thing, because he came in with a lot of hype, but he just wasn't a fit for that offense. And Brock Purdy just came in and really took that offense by the horns. Now, granted, say what you want, did he have the Avengers on that squad? Absolutely. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you still have to play the quarterback position. You still have to operate. You still have to run that scheme to the best of your ability. And let's face it, the first time Philadelphia Eagles got to the Super Bowl, you could make the claim, if Brock Purdy was healthy, San Francisco's going into Philly and beating them. You could make the claim. Because, I mean, San Francisco's basically playing that full NFC Championship game winner, running Wildcat with Christian McCaffrey, because Brock Purdy didn't have no right arm.
And not
So,
to
I
mention,
mean,
Brock Purdy in that Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. It wasn't him. The reason as they lost,
it wasn't his fault
once
they
again,
lost. It wasn't
once
his fault they
again,
lost.
no, what was the reason? Kyle Shanahan yet again decided not to run the football. This is the third consecutive time we've seen him pass up on running the football in the Super Bowl. Sorry to bring that up, y'all, because
Exactly.
I know. But here's
Man,
my
bro, we're numb to Super Bowl 51 at this point. I don't even worry about it anymore. I'm so
but,
numb to that now.
but Purdy deserved the money because again, with the market, I think the 49ers feel like, well, you know what? We're not going to get any of these top quarterbacks anytime soon. We might as well just go forward with Brock Purdy. And in fairness to him, he has had playoff success. We tried years ago with Trey Lance, and that didn't work out. And we saw Trey Lance. Hey, he got traded to Dallas in exchange for a fourth round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Still hasn't worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Still has not worked out with Trey Lance. So for me, if I'm San Francisco and if I'm Kyle Shanahan and I'm thinking about my offense, I have no other choice but to have Brock Purdy on the roster. And shout out to What's on Your Mind, name a better trio of fellas. I'll wait. Look, you got to keep Brock Purdy. Um, again, the money. I know a lot of people on the group chat, they're not high on Brock Purdy. I like Brock Purdy's accuracy. I think Brock Purdy doesn't have the strongest arm, but it's okay. But I think for him, as long as you don't ask too much on his plate, I think he'll be fine. He'll be good enough. And that's the thing. Look, the Eagles, they paid Jalen Hurts all that money, but rightfully so, because again, they needed to find someone to move on from Carson Wentz. Jalen Hurts
Right.
became that guy for them. Do I think Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback? No. I think at best he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. But I believe he's a good enough quarterback that you can win a Super Bowl with. And I think Brock Purdy can be that for San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan, his problem comes Super Bowl time. Not only with not running the football, also he forgot the new overtime rules. Because even Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl, they were kind of shocked that the 49ers decided to receive the ball first. Remember, cluelessness on Kyle Shanahan's part. But you had to sign Brock Purdy because, well, we're a good enough team. We're not that great of a team as we used to be, but we're a good enough team not to get any of these top quarterbacks, because you look at next year's quarterback class. Drew Allar, Arch Manning is probably going to stay for another couple of years in Texas. So interesting quarterback class heading into 2026. So I don't think San Francisco was going to get any of these quarterbacks. Let's just keep Purdy for now. He has experience. Guys respect him. He fits Kyle Shanahan's offense. Just leave it at that. What are your thoughts, champ?
Look, people keep always bringing up the Avengers, the Avengers, the Avengers. Lamar Jackson had the Avengers too. Has he won anything? Wait.
No.
I mean,
Brock Purdy is not Lamar Jackson.
Huh?
I get what you're saying, but he is not Lamar Jackson.
No. The thing is, excuse me, you can have the Avengers on your team, and in the great words of Loki, you can have a Hulk. But if you don't, but it's up to you as the quarterback in order to win the games. Lamar has not done that. When you look down there at Florida, I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, Tua has a plethora of weapons. Running backs, he has the wide receiver core, hasn't done anything with it. They got to the playoff and he stuck the joint up. So there's a lot of guys that have the Avengers on their team, but can't necessarily lead them to a Super Bowl and within an eyelash of winning. That's how come I always say when it comes to Jalen Hurts, yeah, you can give him the Avengers, but how many quarterbacks have we seen have the Avengers and still don't win with them? That's just my mentality. He's proven that he can win with these guys, and if it wasn't for his coach, who, for whatever reason, don't like to run the ball, when in reality, running the ball is the strength of the zone blocking West Coast offense. Like I've said before, that zone blocking offense turns mediocre running backs into good running backs into great running backs, and great running backs into Hall of Famers instantly when you play in that offense. If you don't believe it, look at all of the 1,000-yard rushers that Denver had after Terrell Davis. That's tailor-made for the running game. So for some reason, Kyle Shanahan doesn't like to run the ball, although the zone blocking scheme is tailor-made for it. I will never figure that out. But look, John Lynch is one hell of a general manager.
He is.
I don't think people is looking at him as an X factor. He's going to find a way to infuse that team with talent. He's going to find a way to get them to where they need to be. They already have a solid nucleus ready to replace the ones they already lost. Guess what? Although they don't have Deebo Samuels anymore, hey, Jennings he's already ready to step up. Ricky Pearsall, if it had not been for the Pew Pew incident, then guess what? We may see more of him. They still have Brandon Ayuk. Then, not to mention, people ain't even talking about it. They just re-signed George Kittle, who just had an all-pro season last year.
And hoping if Christian McCaffrey stays healthy.
Even if he doesn't stay healthy, you saw what they did with the running back by committee system that they did.
With Mason, yeah.
Yes, although he's gone, you saw, like I said, that system makes good running backs into excellent running backs, and you saw it. And then the only thing that I'm really, really concerned about is them losing Dre Greenlaw, although he's hurt already. But, I'm really concerned about the defense and them losing Dre Greenlaw. He was one of the hearts and soul of that defense. But, I mean, the 49ers are an excellent franchise. John Lynch is going to find a way to infuse that team with talent at all costs. And guess what? They're going to be able to retool and go forward with their talent. Really, if you really want me to be honest with you, I like the Seahawks, but I don't think they have to worry about them as much as this year. I don't think they have to worry about them that much this year. I don't really think. And then the thing is,
I think the Cardinals. That's the team you should probably look at.
The jury is still out on them. I'm just being honest. because Kyler Murray, he was fully healthy this year, and a few collapses here and there. So the jury's still out. The only team. Oh my bad. I didn't interrupt.
No, go ahead, champ. It's all good.
The only team that I'm really worried about in the NFC West,
obviously Los Angeles,
is them St. Louis. Is them Los Angeles Rams. That's the only team I'm really worried about. The jury is still out on Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. The jury is still out right now on how good that the Seattle Seahawks are going to be doing. Hell, they just lost their starting quarterback, and you saw how bad that Sam Darnold stunk to join up. And people are getting. And I don't think people understand this. People are giving him this big number on this contract. He could very well look. People are giving him this big number on this contract. People don't even realize that that's a 1-year deal. That's a 1-year deal that Sam Darnold is on, and they drafted, ironically, in the 3rd round, Jalen Milroe. Who's the last quarterback? Remember what happened the last time they paid a quarterback in free agency, and they drafted another guy in the 3rd round? What happened? Oh yeah, Matt Flynn was supposed to be the guy in Seattle when Pete Carroll first got there. They drafted Russell in the 3rd round. Scrambling quarterback, quite like Jalen Milroe. A lot of raw talent, they said. End up winning the Super Bowl, going to another one. End up having an MVP caliber season right before he left. So this is just a 1-year deal that Sam Darnold is on. And you saw, and many people would say, Sam Darnold got exposed during that playoff game that they played. So this is basically a 1-year experiment to see what he's going to do. So it's really year to year. So the jury's out on Sam Darnold. The jury's out on whether Kyler Murray and this offense and the Arizona Cardinals are really going to get it together. The only team you're really, really worried about at this point that is going to really be a threat is the St. Louis Rams, the Los Angeles Rams. So what am I really worried about at this point?
The reason why you say the Rams, champ, is because obviously the season that they've had, obviously they have the best coach, not just in that division, but arguably in the NFC in Sean McVay. They were that close to beating the Philadelphia Eagles in the divisional round. Matthew Stafford, your Georgia Bulldog, as well as BRF, is still staying there. They just acquired Devontae Adams in free agency, so pair him up with Puka Nacua. They got Kieran Williams. But Arizona, I did like what they've done. They re-signed Trey McBride. He's still going to be there, one of the better young tight ends in the NFL. I did like the addition of Josh Sweat. So I think for Arizona, remember, they were competitive last year. They missed the opportunity to make the playoffs. We got to wait and see with Kyler Murray. I still believe Kyler Murray is a talented quarterback, but you and I, we've had discussions about Kyler in terms of his work ethic. I mean, as long as he's on Call of Duty, his record is great when Call of Duty is out or when he's playing Call of Duty. My thing is with the San Francisco 49ers, but back to Purdy, I have no problem with it. And I think the Trey Lance example is the example why they decided to say, no, we're not going to go and make a big splash and go for a high quarterback. We're going to go with the guy that we have right now. Remember, before Brock Purdy, they had Jimmy Garoppolo. They went to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. They went to an NFC Championship game with Jimmy Garoppolo. So you've done it with less tier quarterbacks if you're Kyle Shanahan. The best one you've had was, of course, Matt Ryan. So I think with Brock Purdy, I think you'll be fine. You'll still be competitive. Brock Purdy's had success in the playoffs. I think for San Francisco, they'll be okay. And also with the contract, they can reconstruct his contracts. As I mentioned, Chip, you've seen Cleveland with Deshaun Watson after they gave him $230 million guaranteed. You saw with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, they got their contracts. Dak was paid as the highest paid player in the NFL. They had to restructure their contracts. So I think San Francisco signing Brock Purdy, I'm not mad with it. Because A, We don't want to waste so much time trying to get a quarterback in the draft. Let's just have the one that we have. We went far with him, so let's just continue. And I've said before of Brock Purdy the same way I said with Jalen Hurts. He's a good enough quarterback that he may not necessarily win it for you, but you could win it with him. And a franchise would be good enough to have a Brock Purdy as long as you put him under the right situation, the right circumstances. I still don't have him as elite, but I think he'll be just fine. That's all. And remember, Brock Purdy, when they went to the Super Bowl, he was in the conversations for the MVP. Let's not forget that.
Yes, he was. And like I said, you got to stick with what your guns is. I mean, there's not that last. And I think they're to your point, PSD. They're looking at the risk that they took with Trey Lance when they just risked it all and just traded up in order to get him. It's like, do we really want to repeat this process and do this again next year, even with an Archie Manning, even with a Drew LR? These guys might not be what we think they are. So, hey, let's just stick with what we have, especially with this team and the chemistry that the team already has.
Now, with Trey Lance, though, he only had 1 year of eligibility, 1 year as a starter, but then that was about it. He didn't play in 2020 because, obviously, of course, COVID. Mm-hmm. So I think San Francisco will be just fine.